So once again, welcome everyone. Thank you all of the panelists for coming out today. Our goal is not to make anyone an expert. These are our experts. These are our resources. What we're trying to do today is to better inform you of the questions as realtors to ask your clients and look for to keep your transactions moving forward. So what we'd like to do is start down there with you, Jim. Tell us your name, tell us a little about your company, what you specialize in, and what's one thing you wish every realtor understood about your profession.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim McDonald. I'm with Varsity Zone. I've been in this industry for 30 years. Our company can handle residential, commercial, all service. We can service any product as far as like the mechanicals of it. And we do new construction and remodels. So we're kind of well-rounded as far as that. One thing I guess I would understand in our trade would probably be that the AC is the most important appliance in your home. So you got to take care of it.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. John Variola. I work for Canberra Brands. We own and operate Varsity Zone Air Conditioning. So I work with Jim and Mighty Dog Roofing. I basically handle Tampa down to Port Charlotte. I work with a lot of realtors at closings that need repairs, etc. Myself and my reps, we have the tools and the autonomy in our trucks at all times to stop a leak on the spot. We save a lot of time. So I like to think sometimes I'm a realtor's best friend, maybe. Something I wish realtors knew or understood more, and I feel like it's happening more and more, is a home is being purchased with a 20-something-year-old roof, and 6 months later, a year later, that homeowner's insurance company is either threatening to drop them or raise their rates and continue to raise their rates. And I'm sure some of you are seeing it, and that's what we're seeing a lot of just based on the age of the roof. So if we can get a better understanding of that, I think it will help everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Matthew Ort. I'm with Shock Dock Electric. I've been doing residential electrical now for about 20 years. That's all we do here. What I do for inspections and realtors, I do a lot of inspections for people, a lot of repairs for people, and I, kind of run of the mill. I take care of all the issues you got with the electrical system in the house, and I think the most important thing for electrical is that it's the lifeblood of the house. Without it, appliances don't work. The AC certainly doesn't work. Your equipment doesn't work, and it's imperative that it gets taken care of and maintained properly. Thank you.
My name is Renato. Sorry, you got one more? Oh, I'm sorry.
You're all right. My name's Tony Supa. I own AquaDuck Plumbing. Been open for 12 years, veteran owned and operated, been blessed to hire over 9 veterans over the last 12 years. Service from little over Lakewood Ranch down to Toledo Blade. And as far as realtors, I would say one thing that would be helpful, I think, is unlicensed work. And that goes not just for plumbing, but all the trades and the issues that can arise from that.
You can go. Thank you, personally.
It's okay. My name is Renato Carotti. I'm with Carotti Engineering. We've been in business in this area for almost 20 years. And what we do for the realtors is provide what's called a structural damage assessment, where we address concerns, the physical concerns to a piece of property, either raised by the seller or the buyer or anybody in between. So we're able to give you answers so that your clients on either side can make a more informed decision, a better decision about their transaction moving forward. We also do design work on the side. So if you have like additions or renovations or improving like commercial property, we can help you with that too. Thank you.
Welcome. My name is Mark Lee. I'm the founder and owner of LeeWay Home Inspection. I appreciate every one of you. I am a full service inspection company, from the full home inspection to sewer scope to mold assessment, all the way down to the 4-point wind mids that we're here for today. So all I can say today is I'm that person that I just need all these trades as you do, because I'm the one who tells you what's wrong and they're the ones who fix it. So this is the most important part of the equation, is having all these trades here, because they are my partner right arm, your right arm, because once they get called as a problem, a 4-point is a pass fail, it has to pass. And these trades must be licensed, and they are the ones who do the assessment and fixing of that problem. So I appreciate everybody on this panel. I appreciate you mostly, because you're putting this together. So thanks again for all your support in helping our company grow, and also everybody on this panel to help me grow with them as well. So thank you. Look forward to having a very nice discussion about this.
Little thingy-majigger.
You have a thingy-majigger.
Yes. Can everybody hear me though? Okay. Hi, I'm Danielle. I'm with Brooks Insurance Group. Kimberly is out of town right now, but she has been in business for 20 years, servicing personal lines, commercial lines insurance. Home insurance is definitely our #1 book of business. We do a lot of homes and kind of work with all of you guys too. I would say the biggest thing that would be good for people to understand regarding our role is that we do have, some push with the insurance carriers, but we are also pretty much bound by the rules and regulations as well. And we can only do what they say we can do at the end of the day. But we do try everything that we can to get the best rates and get things approved for people. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you all for being here today. So since you're already nervous, we're going to stick right with you. Danielle, what is a 4-point inspection, and why do insurance companies require one? What are the risks you guys are trying to evaluate, and what is the #1 thing that makes properties most difficult to insure?
That is a very long multi-point question.
We'll go to the first one.
Okay.
What do you feel a 4-point inspection is from an insurance bureau?
The 4-point inspection really kind of determines underwriting eligibility and where to place a risk, and if a home is going to be insurable with a standard carrier, or if we have to find a specialty carrier depending on the characteristics. The age of the appliances the electrical and HVAC roofing all play major roles in determining loss factors. Obviously, older items are more likely to have a future loss, so it helps the underwriters also determine future risk, as well as evaluating the current risk at hand. And what was the other part, or was that?
No, you pretty much wrapped it all up. I mean, you obviously, being in the insurance business, know, and obviously you're protecting your interest, the mortgage company's interest, and looking at the primary items of the home. Based off that, Mark, walk us through your typical 4-point inspection, the documents, what you do.
Right. A 4-point inspection, like I said, is a pass fail. When I get the referral from you or the client or Brooks, SRQ, insurance, well, yeah, they're very strong referrals. So the 4-point for me is the front line to getting the underwriters their information they need to assess your property. That property is a pass fail. So the first part is, and a 4-point is every trade here. You have a roof, you have electrical, you have plumbing, and you have HVAC. Those are the only 4 things that are looked at on a 4-point. So if a wall is falling down, and if it's not leaking because the roof is still intact, it's not important to a 4-point. Keep that in mind. I see a lot of people try to order a 4-point as a very cheap home inspection, And it doesn't work that way. This is for insurance. And then they don't understand why there's flaws in their floor, there's problems in their house, and they didn't get it called out on a 4-point. That's not the purpose. The purpose is only for insurance, to give an underwriting, to give the assessment as Danielle, as she pointed out, that's the only purpose. So just remember that, okay?
What's the biggest misconception that realtors often have on a 4-point?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because I mentioned it pretty much right in my answer before, is that they expect that 4-point to be a home inspection, or a cheaper home inspection that they can do a home inspection light. It is not home inspection light. It is only the 4 points that it asks for. And if I see termites while I'm in the attic looking at the roof, it doesn't matter. It's not part of that inspection. And I may, just out of courtesy, mention it, but it's also not my purpose to do that, and sometimes gets into some real serious issues if I do that. So I sometimes hesitate, depending on reading the room, if that's an important part of the knowledge. So just keep in mind that 4-point is only those 4 items.
We're still with you. Do you get a lot of realtors that try to just order a 4-point?
A lot is a relative question, because I do get it. It's common, but I also try to inform when I just get a 4-point and it looks like a sale, the purpose of that 4-point to the realtor or the client or whoever's ordering it. If it's a homeowner and they're ordering a 4-point, it's obvious. I don't have any question. But if it's for a sale and I see a for sale sign in front of the house, I'll make a phone call to whoever's ordering that inspection to make sure they know what they're getting, because that's it. There's nothing more. Okay?
Is there anything homeowners can do before the inspection, or should they just wing it and see what their property is?
That's a homeowner before the inspection. Yes. One, clear out the areas that I'm going to be looking at. Okay. So it's not my job to move the garage boxes away from the electrical panel. It's not my job to have the garage clear so I can get into the attic. I need access to the HVAC. There's nothing that can be in the way. I do obviously will move those things because I'm not going to walk away, but it's annoying to an inspector to have to do their job. So as a realtor, and you need to inform your sellers or your clients to get ready for that 4-point, those are very important things. Okay, good question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So based off what Mark said, Danielle, if you receive a report in from Mark or the realtor that says basically failed, is that pretty much a given? We're not getting insurance for that property for?
It would be very difficult. There are some specialty carriers, but you will be paying a lot of money, and a lot of people will not want to do that. But it's next to impossible. It could be, depending on.
I'll make a point too to that is there are some things that I know are not defects, but affect the report. Cloth wiring, they are not defects, but they eliminate a lot of carriers to insure. So those are things, if a roof is older and they have aggregate loss, and the roof contractor can kind of answer to this too. If it's a standard normal wear and tear, it's not a defect to call aggregate loss, okay, for example. So that gives a lot of leeway to make sure that there's some, I try to lean towards the client getting insurance as opposed to the other way, and working for the insurance company to have a defect where they can't get insurance. So I lean towards them getting it over them having a problem and having a very expensive fix to get it.
Thank you. Thank you both. So now that we've kind of base understanding of what the 4-point is and inspection, we'll dive in a little deeper, and we'll go over to John with Mighty Dog Roofing, and what's one of the biggest things you noticed first? When you walk up and you have an inspection going for a roof, what are some of the issues that concern you the most? And then I've got a couple other after that.
Oh, thank you. So obviously we look at the outside of the roof. We use drone technology for video and picture, but I like to get up on the roof. I like to get up close. I look at all the roof to wall connections. I look at the valleys. I look at the overall condition. I always pull a property card before I go to a property, whether it's for sale or it's just for a homeowner. I pull a property card, so I have a little bit more history of the home. I go up into the attic on every inspection. That's imperative. I don't understand. Some roofers don't. They just take drone pictures and send estimates for repairs or replacements. But I go up into the attic. I look at everything. I look at the trusses, if anything's cracked, broken. I look at the venting. That's so important to make sure that that's working properly. And I also look and see if the home has a third nail, which connects the block to the roof line. More and more insurance companies are looking for that, so I like to document whether they have it or not.
Okay. What problems do you see the most that shorten the life of a roof here in Florida?
Most common things that will shorten the lifespan of a roof is proper ventilation. You have to have proper ventilation. I could just speak for myself and our company is, I add venting to almost every project that we do. If it's a replacement on an older home, I would say 9 out of 10 projects we're adding venting. You have to. Some roofers, some contractors will just replace what's there, but we take the extra step most of the time, and we'll be adding venting. So I think that's the biggest thing: proper insulation and venting. How do I what? So there are a few different ways to add venting depending on the roofing system, whether it's tile, metal, flat, shingle. What I like to do is when hot air comes into the home, comes in through the soffit, it has to escape, right? So hot air is going to rise. I like the ridge venting. So wherever you have a long ridge, usually where 2 slopes meet, that's the best type of venting to have, I think, in the home. It releases the most amount of air. So I don't know if that answers your question. Escape. Correct. Oh, sure. It would rarely be 8, but it might be adding some bridge venting if the homes don't have, my home was built in 2006 and it didn't have ridge venting. And some builders just don't add it. Like I said, we add it on every replacement that we do. We add the ridge venting wherever it's possible. If it's not possible, we'll add some type of other venting. There's usually like a 4-foot aluminum vent that would go up on your roof that would help the air, and we try and get to the closest to the top as possible, so the air will vent properly.
Yep. So
New homes, brand new builds, we're seeing it. Older homes, we're seeing it. It's every scenario. Yeah, it's not as cut and dry as certain sections of neighborhoods or certain years. Some people, when they built the home, they just took the extra steps and the extra precaution. That's a good question.
well,
I can answer that.
It's not required, is it?
For a 4-point, no, you will not get that on a 4-point. For a home inspection, that's part of our inspection, yes. Yes, if there's no venting, we note the venting and we have square footage requirements that are code. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So, go ahead.
Absolutely. So I've been on homes, and ones that are not properly vented are going to deteriorate a lot faster. You're going to have more issues on a home that's not properly vented. But to answer that question honestly, there's nothing one more common than the other. I've seen 12-year-old shingle roofs that look like they're 30 years old. And on the other, spectrum, I've seen homes that are properly built and properly maintained is the key, that are 20 years old plus, and they look great. So it really depends on, your location, the wind patterns in that area, how the sun hits your home. There are a lot of factors. But insulation and venting should be number one and number two.
So that kind of leads into the next question, and you kind of answered it, but if you could elaborate a little more, what maintenance helps homeowners get the most life out of the roof, and what repairs that get delayed do you see cause the biggest problems?
So we have annual inspections. So if you have a job completed with us, we do annual inspections. Things we look for is just a few things: debris that's sitting on your roof. If you have a lot of debris that's sitting in a valley and it's building up, what's going to happen? So any water that's coming down that roof now has a little pool. We'll say it starts the pond, starts to gather water, and what does water do? It finds a way in somehow. So moving debris, cleaning your roof, having someone come by once a year, and that's something the homeowner can do. You walk around your home, see if your soffits are intact, see if the gutters are properly hanging, or hire someone like me, and I'll come do all that for you.
Or kind of like the home you drive by and the plants growing out of the gutters?
I had a quick question to that, actually, if you don't mind. There are a lot of companies out there that sell this product of sealing the shingles. Is that something that will extend the life, one? And then two, is that something that is reported on your 4-point?
I guess I'll go first. So yeah, I have seen some success with, you're talking about like a company that comes and seals the roofs, rejuvenates it. Yeah, so I've seen some success with that, and I would say it's a good way to provide a little bit more life to your roof. It's definitely a positive thing, but I have to now refer to the insurance companies and see if that, what's your motivation for doing it? Is it to sell the home, or is it to provide light? You're going to stay in that home, and I don't know if the insurance companies recognize it.
For the 4-point, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead and put that part of
For the 4-point, the roof age is the roof age. What they do to that roof does not change the age of the roof. So in my report, it goes by the roof age. And then that goes to Danielle on what she does with that roof age, because there are requirements on insurance from that point.
All standard carriers will only accept up to 20 years old for shingle roofs and 30 years for tile and metal roofs. So even if they're resurfaced, they're still going to look at the roof age at the end of the day. There are some non-standard carriers that will accept shingle roofs over 20 years as long as there is a report that shows there's at least 5 years of life left. And then we have one or two that'll accept older, but they don't take into consideration the roof surfacing. Those, it depends. It's typically 20 years as well, unless they see excessive age and wear, because those roofs do not last nearly as long.
For product type of roof, flat roofs usually have a bitumen, and the bitumen is 15 for my report. So when they ask for age, life, I take it from 15 years. So that would go to the roofer actually to determine that if my age is correct on that as well. And I do 3-tab the same.
So yeah, I would categorize a flat roof, which is a modified bitumen. It's a rolled asphalt, very similar to like a shingle material, but it's rolled. I would say that has about a 20-year lifespan. Again, depending on how it's installed and if it's installed correctly. That's a big factor as well.
What would you say about like TPO roofs? Because I know a lot of people also deal in like commercial flat roof properties and stuff like that, that we're looking at insurance and things for as well.
Yeah, I would say if you had a chance to go with a TPO roof, you probably should. It costs a little bit more than the rolled asphalt, but it usually comes with a 25-year warranty. We put a lifetime workmanship warranty on our work, especially if we're doing a TPO roof. For those that you don't know, it's white. So you see it on a lot of commercial buildings. It's like a white, it's almost like a rubber material. It has a very long lifespan and it's easy to repair.
Yes, and you will get better rates for having that versus just regular rolled roofing.
So the manufacturer usually puts a 25-year warranty on it, on the product itself.
Perfect. Mark, so Basedale, everything kind of touched on it already, but what's the biggest issue that appears the most when you're doing a inspection on a roof? And what are the documents you're looking for and what would signal you to make further evaluation?
I would say the number one defect is they double tap. It is back in the older homes when you had the electrical NEC codes, they were accepted to have a neutral and ground double tap on a bus bar. And that is not appropriate today for code or insurance. So those are my most common defects that I see every day. And it's every time I get into an old panel and we're doing a 4-point, it's inevitable unless it's been looked at before.
Gotcha. And what about on a roof? What do you see the most often on a roof and would signal you for more evaluation?
I would say for a tile it'd be the cracks, the cracked tiles if it's excessive and depending on the age. I don't put defects on a tile roof if I only see a few cracks and it's a newer roof, because my concern isn't really the tile, it's the underlayment underneath. So that tells me a little bit about the care of that roof. And second, I would say the age of the roof is probably the most important part of a shingle roof. And any limbs or any evidence of having some trees rubbing on it for an extended period of time will definitely degrade that roof pretty quickly. Those are pretty common.
And Danielle, based off everything we've talked about, what for an insurance company is the number one deciding factor? Is it age versus condition? And what are the biggest roof findings that basically will put us realtors in a position where we're getting the phone call going, I can't get insurance. What do I do?
It will be age number one overall. And then older roofs, condition. But if your roof is 20 years or less, you will not have issues finding coverage. Once you get to that 20-year mark, that's where it starts getting more difficult. So age overall.
And how willing are the insurance companies these days to, I have a buyer, they're buying Mark's house, the roof is 22 years old, but I have a quote and a bid that he's replacing it the day after closing.
Citizens will be the only insurance carrier that will accept that. Otherwise, it will have to be completed prior to closing.
Okay.
And it's very hard to get the approval with Citizens Insurance too.
So based off all of our roof discussions, we'll kind of transition into some of you other experts of John was not called, so now Mark's roof's leaking, and where do we expect to see some of this damage? And I know, from Matthew, from an electrical standpoint, there's so many connections going through the roofs and everything else. What do you kind of see and what most concerns you when roofs are leaking or water starts getting into the electrical panels?
I would say when a roof starts to leak, the biggest issue I find is it gets into the fixtures. It gets into the ceiling fans, it gets into the can lighting, and you don't notice it at first until things start to flicker or they get dim. Also, depending on where the panel is located, if it's in the garage, you have like a small leak somewhere there close to the garage as I've seen it fall into the panel as well. And then once water starts getting into the panel, big problems start happening with the panel. But more so, my major concern is just ceiling fixtures, ceiling fans, light fixtures, smoke detectors, speakers will get it as well. But yeah, as far as like a roof leak, that's like the biggest issue with a roof leak electrically.
And I know Mark talked some about some electrical issues there a little bit ago, but for realtors, you know, what panels should we recognize in the industry of that's going to be a problem panel, or, you know, ages of panels? I know there's a few out there or used to be on the list that, you know, if you have that panel, it's going to need replaced.
Federal Pacific is the biggest one. There's Zinsco, and then there's a Sylvania GTE, which is it's a marriage of Sylvania and Zinsco technology. But from what I gather with insurance companies it's Challenger. That's their biggest one they're coming after now. They used to be okay with the main breaker and replacing the branch circuit breaker, so the 20, 30 amp circuit breakers in there. Now they're saying, hey, no, you can't do that anymore. You have to replace the whole box. So it's one of those things. Sometimes people will retrofit the panel covers and they'll try to hide that it's a Challenger. Put like a square D cover on and try to conceal it. I've seen that happen many times. But yeah, look out for Challenger specifically is the biggest contention point for insurance companies. Yeah, Challenger, no good. I mean, it's the main breaker's fine. Electrically, the main breaker's fine, but the branch circuit breakers don't trip under like direct circumstances, and that's why they have the biggest problem with it. I would say 90s, early 90s, late 80s when Challenger came in. Federal Pacific and Zinsco were from, I want to say, late 60s to the late 80s, and then that's when they kind of shut down.
Based off that, if any of these realtors had a home they were about to list, they walk in, they see a Challenger panel. What's the average 100 amp, 200 amp panel for the standard home cost to replace?
Well,
Barring no major wiring issues, just, you know, replacement, other replacement.
okay, so
We don't have to go deep. Ballpark.
It all depends on the jurisdiction you're in, whether you're a city or a county or where you're at. The biggest thing for if your panel is outside, it's an exterior panel and you're not having to do anything but like the panel, the ground system, pull a permit, put a surge protector on, I would say a good fair price for that is right around, I would say between, if it's depending on the difficulty and the size, 2,500 to 4,500, depending on what it takes, is a pretty fair price. If your panel's inside the house, the National Electric Code, you have to have a disconnect outside now for emergency purposes. So now your main panel will become a sub panel. There's a whole bunch of stuff to it, but you can expect that to probably be 6,500 or more, depending on what you have to do to achieve that. Condos they're their own beast, because usually you have a main breaker somewhere outside already, like a meter bank. So you can just usually swap those out, put one in, because there's always a shutoff somewhere where the meter collective is. It's like a panel rejuvenation is what we call it. We swap out the circuit breakers, change out the connections, fix the double taps. We check for incorrect sizing of breakers. That's another thing that comes up, I believe. Mark can verify on the insurance inspection. There is improperly sized breakers.
Yeah.
You've got a 50 amp breaker on a 30 amp AC unit. It's overfused, and that gets called out a lot. So really, it's hard to identify those things ahead of time. So it's, in my opinion, if you're going to list a house and you know it's older, call an electrician out and have them come in and kind of do like a pre-inspection of things that may pop up in the future for it. You get a pretty good idea of what your sellers, and you will have a pretty good idea of what you're looking at then. And it's safe bet anywhere from, if it's a small 100-amp panel like in a condo, anywhere from like, let's just say 700 to a larger one. It could be 1,800 depending on how many breakers, or more depending on if there's arc faults and things like that, because you're not allowed to downgrade those circuit breakers, and they're much more expensive than the standard. I'm licensed to do condos to a point where it's 2 stories and it's 4 or 6 units wide total. So I don't do the high-rise condos.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I 225 is what I do for my pre-inspections. Now that doesn't include any repairs on site, but I would, if we do repairs, I would roll that into the cost of repairs, just to kind of get ahead of the curve of the home inspection. And it looks, I think it looks better for everybody if the home doesn't have any electrical issues that's called out. Yep.
What's your cost in a very basic double tap neutrals coming out, fix those? I see those so much. I need to kind of get ideas too.
Honestly, I try to, I'm right around that 200 mark for a minimum usually for
That's
things
what I
like that. I mean,
figured,
it's a
yeah.
very basic procedure.
Since the double tap's coming up a lot, just quick explanation to the crowd that may not know what that is, but sees it in a report.
I'm sure most of you have seen an inspection report with the panels and your neutral wires, the white wires in there. They're always double, triple tapped, sometimes quadruple tapped, because people put more circuits than their panels are rated for. The reason being that it was fine prior and it's not fine now. There's a high likelihood you're not putting the correct size neutral together. So if you have a 12 gauge neutral and you put a 14 gauge neutral in, that 14 gauge neutral will eventually dislodge itself over time from heating and cooling. So to fix that, you have to separate them. Now, the trick with this is the ground wires can be double tap still, even triple tap, because they're just ground wires. There's no electricity flowing through them. So the remedy usually, put in maybe a separate ground bar and separate them, but pull all the grounds off the neutral bars, add that ground bar, and then open up those spaces. And it's real easy to tell. You get into the panel, you look at it, you can't miss a double tap on the neutral bar. It glares you right in the face.
What's the do-it-yourself handyman repair job that concerns you the most?
All of them. I would, but the most concerning is I have to say probably running circuitry. Like the panel is one thing. You mess up a connection in the panel, the circuit will stop working. It's when people get into an attic and they start pulling wire and splicing wire themselves. They leave an open splice in an attic with the insulation up against the wood. Bad connections happen. Things start to go downhill from there, you can imagine. I would say that's probably my scariest thing, is the people running circuits and not knowing how to properly splice and secure the wires.
What inexpensive repair often can solve, larger concerns? Obviously everybody goes in their house, they flip a light switch on, they think their electrical system's perfectly fine and amazing and great until the day it doesn't work. Is there, outside of the general, like, come through for a house that's about to be listed and give the realtor and the homeowner something, is there anything a homeowner in general should just be watching for, or inexpensive repairs, things like that?
I mean, honestly, if you're looking for we're talking like a hidden repair kind of thing, or
Just any of the small little things in general. What could you say to a homeowner that, every now and then you should just kind of check this? Or
GFIs. Always check your GFIs. Hit the test and reset button. Make sure they're working properly. Your smoke detectors, obviously check the age of them. Loose outlets are a big thing too. A lot of times if you have an outlet that's loose, its plugs are falling out, it's worn, that's usually a point of contention for bad, circuitry and power loss in a room or something like that. Breakers, if they have the test button, the dual functions or GFIs, go out and hit that test button, make sure it turns, trips, turn off, turn it back on, make sure it resets properly. Other than that, I mean, there's really not a whole lot of other maintenance that you can pull on, things like that.
But yeah, don't just keep plugging into the outlet as it's shaking
Yep.
and ignore it,
Yeah,
right?
if the vacuum keeps falling out of it, plugging into it.
Panel rejuvenation for a single family versus condo, is it roughly the same price or?
Condos are usually about half the size of a single family home. So the cost is more on the breaker end, and there's usually more, the dual function breakers are a little more in there. So the cost it's higher than the condos. It can be double depending on how many breakers and what kind of breakers there are. Are you trying to get like a, generators? I would say if your clients are asking about generators, tell them it's going to take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to get the permit process done by the time they go through the whole thing. And then also, they might not necessarily need a standby. They could be fine with a larger portable too. A main breaker interlock and a good power solution, aside from a standby. Because you're doing a standby, it's the price of a small car, or sometimes more, depending on what you have to do with it. It's with the propane or the gas, whatever you got to put in there. By the time you get all the permitting, all the process done, you sometimes you're spending over 20 grand.
Did you have a question also?
Yes, it is.
Maybe it's not the right thing to do. We brought someone, they fixed it. All right, so it's not a licensed person. So inspector, take the report. Sorry, the inspector asked for only the pictures, repair, and invoices. Invoices came from the handyman. Inspector look at the pictures. That is fine. They just update the report. So I'm asking you, when you get the invoice from the licensed professional, you got to check the license number, you got to come to some type of verification, or just the invoice, even if it's a fake, I'm sure. You might want to go back, do the re-inspection, or maybe we'll say, picture that now, I want to see the invoice. You said, okay, everything is changed. What happens? Like, they will have a problem with the insurance after that?
That's a great question. We deal with this every day, dealing with fixes in electrical especially. We require a licensed professional fix it. And the reason for that is many. One is we have somebody licensed now liable. Okay, that liability goes to that license. Once I call it out and it's fixed by a licensed professional, I'm off the hook. So definitely as a home inspector, I want that licensed profession fixing that problem, because now if it comes back as a problem, it's not on the home inspector, okay? It's on the licensed professional that was required to evaluate and repair it, okay? So that's the answer to that question. The next one is a little more subjective. Okay. Do we check it? Do we not check it? Is that important? It's very important to get that licensed professional. But what happens is I can go back when I do my original inspection, I don't have any evidence of any licensed professional having that panel being done. So if I go back and that is acceptable now based on my visual inspection, there's times where you want them to get insurance and you want things to move and progress, that it's acceptable. Okay, so it can go both ways. And it's really, and in my continuing education training and all the professionals that I ask about this in my profession, is it's at our professional discretion. Okay, we are a licensed home inspector. We are still licensed. So we have a professional discretion that we can take to move that forward if needed. If I'm having resistance and I'm having problems and I'm not getting what I need, I will definitely not accept anything less than a licensed professional. Even I get arguments with an electrician telling me that it's correct and he's not fixing it. I got all kinds of trouble going on that one. Okay. That happens more than you know, where these licensed electricians, professionals, roofers tell me, well, I'm not licensed. I don't know. I said, I've seen more electrical panels than probably they have in their lifetime. Okay. Plus I get a lot of continuing ed. My whole profession gets that continuing ed all the time. So we're not licensed, but we are still. We know not everybody's perfect, but for the most part, yes. If I have any trouble and I want that license on that receipt so that I can then defer that to a person that is going to take the responsibility if there is a problem. Hopefully that answered your question.
Say something? I mentioned the unlicensed work, and just a quick story. I was leaving for Paris this past couple months back, and we were supposed to leave at 2 a.m. At 10 p.m., I'm still packing and doing everything. Wife says the AC is making a weird sound. I go out to the garage, I turn off the breaker, I turn it back on. Seems okay. 20 minutes later, it makes it again. I go back out annoyed into the garage, and flames and sparks are shooting out of my panel and going into my attic. And I do a full sprint to the outside and I kill the panel outside. Fire department said that if I had waited 3 seconds longer, my house would be gone. I have 4 children, my disabled father-in-law living there. So I had to find a hotel room at 11, 12 p.m. and then leave at 2 a.m. to the airport. The point of that is when you're dealing with like electricity or gas or propane, like this is where human beings live and there are children. So you're selling this to somebody. And if you're having a handyman, I mean, there's plenty of things handymen do okay. But explosive gases and electricity are not those areas, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Bingo.
So you kind of touched on it earlier. Your number one issues that appear most frequently would be the double tap.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, that's where you're taking the photos of the panel, what the panel covers off, and exposing all that to the realtors and the insurance company, so to speak.
Yep.
Okay. And Danielle, what electrical findings concern you the most? Is it the panels that we've talked about? That's a no-go if any of that comes up?
Yes, those panels, double tap, and we don't see it very often anymore, but knob and tube wiring comes across every now and then. All of those will make you ineligible with about 99% of the insurance carriers.
You see knob and tubes?
Yeah,
Every now and then. We just
No,
were looked into a 1913 house.
Yeah, 1920, yeah, in Sarasota, and they have that stuff, but they haven't pulled the stuff out.
No, it's still in there. Yeah.
I just did an inspection with knob and tube.
Well, Live,
Live knob and tube.
So-
Wow.
And yes.
It was an old Palmetto.
I always recommend pulling the permits for them. It's a much smaller job, but still you're adding that power source to the house. You want to make sure it's done correctly. It's done safely. It is inspected. I would always recommend pulling permits 100%, especially on generators and panels and things like that. N- Not that I'm aware of. There's really not a whole lot you can do with that because usually the main breaker's in a meter bank and there's no clips or anything you can add to that meter bank to power one unit. Not legally anyway. I'm sure people can find a way, but you know, if you're in a condo, you're kind of stuck there for the most part, unless you're fortunate enough to get into a condo that is like a single story and you have separate disconnects and then there's a work with that. But you're in a high rise. I have never come across a solution for that. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely not.
No, not correct. That is city or county dependent. So if I'm in Sarasota County, if you're a licensed plumber and it's 1-for-1, no permit is required. Correct. If I walk across the street into City of Venice or Charlotte County, I now require a permit. I believe City of Sarasota, City of Venice, I believe Manatee and Bradenton both did away with that. They used to require it. Trying to think, I can't remember if Longboat requires it. They have their own building department.
They do.
But yeah, so it's literally, I will be at one house and I can look across the street and that house would require the permit and this one wouldn't.
Yeah, and it's crazy.
Water heater replacement.
Crazy as it sounds, like in Charlotte County, you have to have a permit for a hot water heater. And if you set your hot water heater out front for the trash to pick up, you're probably going to get a call from the permit office. Not
Yes.
that I know that from experience, the same.
The best you can get for that is like a tracer. You can turn the circuit off and then it comes to like a positive, negative. You put it on like the panel and you have a wand and you can kind of trace circuits and stuff out like that. Aside from that, you're almost chasing ghosts at that point because it's hidden. It's really hard to get through the wall and see that, especially in like an older home where these typically live. You're dealing with lath and plaster a lot and getting through that wall, even for a tracer, is hard. Um,
The,
There's no way to be sure. The best you can do is just find somebody reputable, good reputation, good reviews, good word of mouth in the community. You can genuinely tell from people too when you're talking to them if they really care and they're going to do a good job. That's real. You can't weed it out. Unfortunately, I personally have seen people with a license do some of the stuff that I wouldn't even see an apprentice do. So it's, it's hit or miss, really. It is. You have all those walls, all that space on the walls. You'll be chasing your tail for days, weeks, trying to find things in the wall, and it may not even exist.
That's a good inspection question too, because we go through visibly the whole house. It's all visual. We look for evidence of things. So if there's no evidence of any problems, there's going to be no way anybody can find it, right? Now, if you're getting evidence of something going on back there, we have tools to be able to look the best we can. I've got an IR camera that can look for heat differences and temperature differences in the wall. So there are ways, if there's evidence, for us to look at it. If there's no evidence, water, stains, heat, oh, that, or you see a black mark, like, wow, that's weird. Okay. So that's going to show heat from, an arc fault or something like that. We can then go to the next step and use some tools to look in that specific area. So that may help. But if there's no evidence, there's nothing really to look at. Does that make sense?
To piggyback onto this whole situation, brownouts are probably the biggest cause I've seen for LED lights flickering, and it happens all day, every day. So what you get in the morning and in the evenings when people are consuming a ton of power, the grid starts to struggle a little bit, and you'll see voltage fluctuate. It's within milliseconds. You'll never really be able to see it fully unless you have like a meter sitting on there telling you what's happening. But you'll have like voltage drop to 110, 105, and then it'll spike to 140, and then it'll drop again, and then it'll spike, and then it'll even out. And it happens just in these little millisecond proportions. And then when you see that flickering happen, it's because LEDs are not meant to operate on anything below 110 volts. They don't even really like 115 volts. They want to be at that 120 to 130 range nominally. So you start seeing flickering lights like that, and say this happens throughout the whole house with LEDs, you're getting some voltage fluctuation.
I would also too remember, volts one thing, but amperage is also considered. When you have such a low amperage on an LED, the slightest fluctuation makes a big change for LED. So, and it's in that one light, I would go to the light and probably change that light out to see if there's a problem with that LED. Okay, so that's the first easy step. The next one gets a little more involved when you're dealing with voltage and amps. Is that fair?
Yeah, I thought, yeah, if it's one singular light, absolutely, you got to adjust that light. But if we're talking, I thought you were assuming like lights flickering throughout the house, or like a whole circuit flickering. Yeah, it's usually the diode.
So to kind of keep things moving so we can get through everybody, we'll kind of hold back a little bit on the questions. We will have time this afternoon as soon as we get done for wine networking and all that. But I want to be able to get through all the panelists, and I know this is a very technical field and we can sometimes get caught up in answers. But Tony, thank you for your information earlier, and we're going to step into the plumbing side of things since we were starting to get some questions on that. And which materials kind of catch your attention the most? What are some of the leaks you see that are hidden? What kind of maintenance should we do as homeowners? And, what do we usually overlook,
I probably need this. Well, the first thing I would, if I were like on a 4-point or something, like looking for this kind of thing, the first thing that would stand out is polybutylene piping. It was often paired with what was called a mana block, kind of like an electrical panel, but for your plumbing. So you have a little the place, it looks like an electrical panel, and there's a valve, and it goes to every fixture in the house. So you can turn off everything from one place. They still use those, but the piping polybutylene it's gone, and insurance companies do not like it. I would also look at supply lines and angle stops, and hose bibs connections at the laundry where the washing machine connects. They do not like corrosion. The insurance companies will want them replaced. That we get inundated with that. In addition to that is the water heater. That's one of their other big concerns. That's typically age. I've heard different things. Anywhere from 6 to 12 years is a problem for certain people, for certain condo associations, that sort of thing. Water heater flushes are great. Most people don't do them. They will extend the life of your water heater. Most people see the fixtures. That's what they think of when they think of plumbing: toilets, faucets, water heaters. That's a plumbing appliance. But the bones that's in the wall and in the floor is probably the most important part. Homes built before 85 are typically going to have cast iron drains, at least in the ground. After around early 80s, they started putting PVC in the walls. It was like they didn't trust it in the ground yet or something. So eventually, though, by the 90s, it's all PVC. So why that's important is cast iron is a metal that rots around water, and we fill it full of water. So they do go bad. You're less likely to have, same with the copper, you're less likely to have a problem with the home from the 40s or the 50s than you are with a home from the 90s. Much more likely to do a repipe or a redrain. Poorer quality materials from Mexico and China over the years just diminished in nickel content and just got worse and worse. So really the important and big ticket items are typically the bones, the actual water, domestic water, and the sewer. You also have natural gas and propane in some homes. But then fixtures are what, is probably going to sell a house, So that's the kind of stuff that people see and what they think of. And I think that's about it.
Thank you. Danielle, what plumbing concerns become an issue for insurance?
Polybutylene piping is ineligible with most carriers. Otherwise, piping age, it does not affect eligibility per se, but it does have coverage limitations. If you have copper piping or piping over 20 years old, they will want to have limited water coverage versus allowing full policy limits on coverage. So there could be some limitations there. Regarding water heaters, it is becoming more difficult to place homes with water heaters over 15 years of age. Many carriers are starting to limit eligibility on water heater age, but not all of them. It is just a new trend we're starting to see.
I have a question to follow up with the water heater. Does it matter where the water heater is located?
That helps with rating, but not eligibility. It helps with premium. But on his note about the corrosion, we have been seeing that a lot as well with carriers coming back. The inspections will actually be marked passing, but there will be a little bit of corrosion that you can just scrape off on the water heaters, and the underwriters will request for that to be repaired by a licensed plumber.
Great. And can we,
If 100% is, if not 100%, no. And they will need certifications and final itemized invoices to confirm everything has been replaced.
Jim, when we've talked about and brushed on about everything, but one of the most important things here in Florida for me is I need to stay cool. So what does a healthy HVAC system look like? And, is age or condition more important? What do we as homeowners not do maintenance wise?
I think it's maintenance, a lot to do with it. It's funny. We always, first about where John and I were talking, I was literally at a home before we got here, and we put a whole new duct system on, and she was a realtor, and we did a new duct system in her attic, and she was seeing all this moisture in her hallway, right? And I get up in there, our ductwork's fine, and I'm like, all right, what did you change, like the envelope? And she sealed off all her vents, right? Because of rodents. And so now she took that envelope and closed it up. So I was just telling John that how important it is for it to vent in the attic. So I just wanted to point that out. To answer your question, as far as a 4-point, like if we were to come out, we want to look at like the approximate age, the overall condition of the equipment, proper operation. I think like a home inspector, he can check cross temperatures, but he can't get in and do the nut and bolts of the equipment. So having an HVAC guy, whoever he is for you, to have him come out and do a full inspection of the equipment, even if you're with the buyer or the seller, let's say it's $200, that's well spent $200. I could just tell you that, just doing a good inspection, because we can check for signs of leak, electrical safety, drainage, make sure it's draining. We're not seeing water everywhere. And then this is really important, even personally or homeowners, if you're having maintenance is done, you always get a maintenance report given to you. At least we give it. Most of them do. Keep those. It has model numbers, serial numbers on it. It just keeps a track, just like when you get your car oil changed, like it's just the same thing. So keep that going. And that's evidence for the realtor. Say, hey, this gentleman's been there. Because you could come up on a 20-year-old system and it's running better probably than a 10-year-old system wasn't taken care of. So those are things, sometimes age can throw you off. So that's what I would say, like, as far as us is inspecting the equipment. So.
So, you know, as far as what you just said there about an old system versus a new system, you know, is there any things that I buy a home and it does have an older system? Should I, you know, immediately plan to replace, or should I get you out there to look it over and say, yeah, I think you've got a few years?
Yeah, that's a tricky question for us because we'll come out and do an inspection and then, you know, 5 months later they're having issues, you know, and it's just, but the government, I don't want to get into that. They're making you, and the manufacturers are making you go to the new refrigerants. Like R22 runs extremely well, but we're way past that. Like the new refrigerant is 454. We have some homeowners that still have the R22 system and it's working perfectly fine, you know? Here's where the problem is. When you need refrigerant, it costs so much for the new refrigerant, the R22, that it forces you to end up going to a new system. It just doesn't make sense to spend a couple $1,000s to put refrigerant in a system that's 20 years old. Just doesn't make sense. So yeah, it's tough when it's us checking the equipment and telling you how long it's going to last. You know, it's a tough one. It really
Makes sense.
Yes.
And
So there's R22, and then most of you, unless you have newer systems, probably have 410A in your house. That's the 410A system. So we're past that now. So they don't even manufacture anymore. And then there's the 454B is the new refrigerant, or R32, because Goodman uses R32. The rest of the manufacturers like Train Carrier, you can name them all, they use the 454B. It's basically the same stuff. It's just named differently. 454B or R32. It depends on one of them. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
but Danielle, when does the HVAC become an issue insurance-wise?
Regarding eligibility, as long as it's satisfactory on the 4-point inspection, they don't have a concern with the age.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we've learned a lot about all the systems. Now, Ren, what are we looking for, or what are you looking for when you get brought in potentially on an inspection or called for, you know, structural problems? You know, where does those water leaks and all these things start to affect the overall structure of the property?
Good question. And I just want to say that the gentlemen here in front of you that are looking at all these different systems, as well as the home inspector, you're going to be your primary eyes and ears for these kinds of items. And they may spot those types of distress to the structural elements at first, and they go, hey, look, as far as the 4-point inspection and checking off some boxes and making sure that you get that correct, you come across something that is structural in nature and you have to address it. It doesn't matter if you have like a great AC. It doesn't matter if your plumbing is perfect and the newest one. If the roof isn't working for you and it blows off in a hurricane, none of that stuff matters anymore. So looking at the structure, if they come across something, they will say, hopefully you guys will speak up and just say, hey, look, I just see something out of the ordinary. You might want to address that. As far as the roof, I see all kinds of different things. Water leak will chew up and degrade wood over time. Plywood, definitely. Trusses, definitely. I see that when you have just normal age. I also see it when you have do-it-yourselfers. Those are probably my biggest issues. And I'm all for people, you know, working on your homes and whatnot, but you got to step back, especially when you're dealing with structural items. So those are the common things that I find in the homes.
So broadly, over your years of experience, which repairs become expensive because I, as a homeowner, waited?
Advanced water damage. If you see something, you got to say something. You got to speak up. If it just keeps going, that damage doesn't go away, and it just gets harder and harder to try to fix something in place, to a point where if you actually have to rip out rafters or trusses, that is just a menagerie of issues, because all of the trades get affected that pass through that truss. And you can't take a truss out without having to actually disconnect that stuff. It just physically isn't possible. So yeah, you don't want to wait. You always want to kind of stay on top of these kinds of things.
Okay, makes sense. And what are some of the signs? I know we talked about earlier with the electric, lights start to flicker, you see a little water spot, are you seeing, the moisture in the wall around windows, things like that, where water's starting to get in?
Absolutely, in anywhere. So water gets in on the roof, say a roof leak. So if someone's walking on the roof and a certain area is softer, much softer than the other, or has a particular bounce to it when you're walking, you can immediately suspect the connection of the plywood sheathing to the roof framing underneath. Soft drywall, perfect example. When you put the IR, the infrared on it, and see the temper differential, you can see patterns of water damage before the staining actually happens. So if that comes across in your inspections, it's something that you can raise an alarm. Plumbing, a great one is your cast iron. I went out to a job site where the cast iron did fail, and it was a perfect conical pattern in the floor that had sunk. And it was just from that, and the walls started opening up just from that. So a lot of different things will start manifesting themselves. Don't put it off.
Sense. So we'll tie it all together, and we'll start down there with Jim. We're going to, we've talked about roof leaks, moisture, framing damage, structural damage, and how all of the panelists here, your jobs and what you do affects potentially his job or the next guy's job. So Jim, can you kind of give us an example of, another trade that maybe discovered a problem that eventually became yours, and how the domino effect works with your systems?
Yeah, so that's easy. So John, because we see each other all the time, could go out on a roof and they say they have a roof leak, right? And John goes up in the attic because they're seeing stains. And notorious, can you hear me? I'm sorry. A notorious spot is Southgate and Gulfgate area. They have metal ductwork, right? So that metal ductwork over time, because it was just wrapped back in the, I don't know, heck, they were like 50s and 60s. So now you have a cold pipe in a hot attic and it's starting to sweat. So we see that quite a bit where the roofer will go out and see a leak, a homeowner saying, well, it's my roof is leaking, and it ends up being the ductwork, so ductwork is extremely important. So I would give you some advice. If you're selling if you see it's metal ductwork, I would just budget in either purchasing or selling it, that it should be replaced, because that's a major problem that we see quite a bit. You put a brand new train system on there, but you got a Yugo engine, it's still a Yugo. So it's really that simple. So ductwork is extremely important, but John sees that, because he likes to blame us anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so I would say roofing goes into the ductwork issue. Yeah.
And I'm going to just go right down the line, same questions for each of you, share an example where another trade discovered a problem that became your problem, and maybe your most memorable domino effect.
Okay, so a little bit about what Jim said. It holds true. If someone is seeing staining on their ceiling, they're going to call me first. They usually will call us before they call an HVAC or a plumber or anything. And in a lot of cases, it's something so simple. I investigate in the attic, determine that it's not coming from the roof or any of the vents. And I would say very common, those AC ducts should be suspended in the air, right? They're strapped along to the trusses. A lot of times when I go up there, and it's so common, is those straps break, the ducts fall onto the ceiling of the home, builds up moisture. And quick way to tell is if you have a customer that has staining on their ceiling, how close is it located to a vent? Usually that is the case. There's some moisture built up and it's not properly installed. And that's sort of where the roofing and the air conditioning goes hand in hand. And I will say one story, it happened once. So basically with certain Florida building codes, when you have a gas line in your attic, it should be a certain distance from the roof line. The home inspector could maybe, confirm this, but I believe it's supposed to be located at least 8 inches below the roof line. And this particular person did not have, I don't know how she did it, but she got someone that knows how to do it. And the gas line was very close to the roof line. When we went to do the roof work, we avoided it, but it could have been a major catastrophe if you have work that's not done by licensed professionals. I can't stress that enough. Even the simple things. So that's all I have to say about that. Oh, sorry.
To be fair, my trade usually causes the problems for a lot of these guys. When it goes bad, everything goes bad. I have to say the biggest thing that I've seen for like a domino effect with HVAC in particular is new units. They'll put in a unit that's, or not necessarily the case now, they're so energy efficient, but prior you would see a larger unit be put in on a smaller circuit and they would just put a larger breaker in. So you'd have, again, like I said, a 50 amp breaker on a 30 amp wire, and then wondering why the wire's getting hot or the connection is going bad in the panel or the sheathing starting to melt. Another thing for me usually is a leaky water heater will get into those elements and it'll short and it'll damage the bus bar in the panel. And once the bus bar is damaged, that panel's done. It's got to be replaced at that point, unless it's new and you can get the guts for it that are UL listed. And then I think tankless water heaters are a big one. Going in there and you have a 100 amp service and they're trying to put in a tankless water heater that takes 2 50 amp circuits. You can't really do that. But yeah, other than that, it's just simple things like that, pay attention to what you're adding and what you're doing, and you avoid a lot of the problems with electrical.
Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes the ceiling leaks will go out and there's a repipe and something's leaking on a fitting or something like that. As far as electrical, I would say, yeah, we'll get a call for a water heater that's not working and it might actually be the breaker went bad. Just a note though on what he said, a water heater, what you see on the outside is a decorative candy coating. It serves no purpose. It's not real. It's all unicorns and fairy tales. Underneath that is a layer of insulation that is also called a sponge. And when that water heater starts leaking, it has now filled the entire casing with water and it is surrounding all of the electrical components. People will want me to try to repair a rotten water heater. It's not a thing. And then forevermore, it's going to be a danger electrically. And then another cross connection will be HVAC. A lot of times I'll get calls for the condensate lines were backing up, but we'll find, especially in commercial buildings that are older, a lot of times the ACs were retrofit and they ran the condensate line to like a garden hose section and it goes into a drain port on the side of this, like a hand washing sink. Those get plugged up with goo. And so it becomes like, is it HVAC? Is it us? I've had a few in the ceiling that were attached to stacks with like a little funnel and a P-trap, and it gets like filled with algae goop, stuff like that. So there'll be some overlap every once in a while.
What are your number one recommendation?
Number one recommendation.
Don't buy a house?
No, absolutely. Buy houses. We definitely buy property. Just
Yeah.
buy property.
Well,
Don't do it yourself. That is just number one. Okay. There's a reason why Florida requires licensed people. It's because Our reputation, our livelihood is on the line for this. Crossover, I see everything. I see it all. The biggest one, I think the most common one is the people want to move their unit, their HVAC handler, or their water heater or whatever into the attic. And the attic is teeny tiny. And they just start cutting. People just start cutting. And they're like, well, we don't need this. This is not holding up the roof. It's just there for shipping. No, there's a reason why every single piece of wood is there. Yeah, the crossover that I see a lot is a roofer will call me and say, hey, there's an area that's really spongy on this roof. I think there's an issue. There's a cut truss. Hey, I have an HVAC. We can't close on the house because we have an open or an expired permit. We need you to come out here. There's a cut truss. That's probably one of the biggest ones that I see, and it's not a do-it-yourselfer piece to fix, but it's not that difficult either. It's something that I've seen people and heard licensed contractors tell me it's a day or 2 days at most. So it's not something that's insurmountable. It's just something that needs to be addressed.
Can I elaborate on that? So I think you're asking about, like you see about cut trusses. What happens is even if it was originally the air handler was in the attic and you want to install it back into the attic, some guys will cut that truss to get the new air handler in there. So what's happening is some people want like this real high end, 17 SEER with those air handlers get physically larger, right? So they'll cut truss and the county will fail you, and we have to do a cut truss report so that we can show this was cut when we came here to install this equipment. We have to cover our butts. It just happened in, where was I at? Palm same thing. Lady had a truss cut. I took pictures of it and I was like, you're going to have this repaired. So just so you know that. I believe you have to have a contractor come back on.
So licensed contractor has to come out and fix it. And
Yeah.
depending on the particulars of that cut,
Yeah.
will dictate how the engineer will figure out the fix, whether it's a complete replacement, whether it's cistern, whether it's something else. But it really depends on the particular specification.
So I guess that question is very pertinent, that I cause problems for every one of these people, but I also create a lot of business for them as well. I think the problems that I cause these trades are when they don't correct it properly. That's why my referral base is very important, because they are out there that do not fix properly. And I think that is where I get the biggest frustration with the trades, is when they don't like my not accepting their work. And it's not that I don't accept their work, it's just it's not correct. So so license is a better option, but there's licensed people that should not be licensed as well. I will say that, because I've run into them. This panel is not one of those. So my referral base is very important for you as well, so that we can get you what you need to make sure the fix is proper. We're not running back and forth trying to get you to get you to a close, which is you quit working for free, right? Until that close, you're working for free. And the whole point is to get you that close. And my purpose is not to get you an obstacle. I just want to make sure that what is correct is being done to the point that it's accepted to the correction. Okay, so that's the most important part of my job. And that's where I give a lot of probably problems for the trades, is when I don't accept their work. Okay.
What's your number one recommendation, Danielle, from an insurance standpoint?
Use a good inspector for your 4-point inspections, because we are having insurance carriers now inspect what the inspectors have inspected to make sure they are doing them correctly. And a lot of times they are coming back finding issues and causing policies to cancel or rates to increase. We just recently came across one where we had 2 different 4-point inspections with 2 different roof years, and the correct one pushed them out of eligibility, where we were originally basing it off of another one. So just making sure that that information is accurate and correct, it will make writing the policies and the smooth underwriting process.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for coming out today, your professional items. We are going to take about a quick 10 minutes here to let the audience ask some questions, and then we'll have wine and cheese also, and 30 minutes of networking or whatever to talk with everyone on the panel as well. Did you have a question, Bree? So the question was changing from a shingle roof to a tile roof, and some roofers may just throw tile on there. Is that a problem, and would an inspection catch that?
Inspections catch that?
It would be hard for an inspection to catch that because after the fact, we definitely know that's not appropriate, but to know this, the engineered structure of a truss system is not known to an inspector because it's visual.
So I can touch a little bit about that, and thank you very much for my lovely wife and that question. No. That's it.
Perfect.
You cannot put something heavier on the roof. You can always make it lighter, but you can't do it heavier. And I have done enough design on the design side on all these new builds to know that the truss packages that the builders buy are down to the quick. They don't allow any fluff whatsoever, or else they lose the job. So it is designed just so. And so going up in weight is no bueno. And they had tons of people in Miami get in trouble for this. There is product though, and if the roofer wants to touch base with afterward, there is product that looks like tile, but it's much lighter, and that is perfectly fine.
Yeah, and don't forget, we have these guys available after as well. Go ahead.
Up to 30 years. They will not require a roof replacement within 6 to 12 months.
As long as it shows satisfactory on the 4-point inspection, they will accept up to 30 years. But if it's 31 years old, if you're already with the carrier, they will not do anything adverse, but it has to be 30 years or less at the time of inception with the policy. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Question is, any changes on the 4 points recently?
The only real difference is on the 4-point, it changed in 2025. And the forms really didn't change a lot of the information. Really what the forms did is just put it in different spots. Like it required, like they added PEX and when was the PEX installed. There were areas that we identify the age of the water heater where the old report, you had to look at the label. I would always put it under the picture, but now they have a spot where they have the water heater change. They're just real subtle differences. There's really nothing more. It's just helping the underwriters read it better so that there's more information. Is that fair, Daniel?
Yes,
Yeah.
it has made that process a lot easier. They're missing the ages a lot less now.
There was nothing added. It was just semantic so that the underwriters could read it better.
Back row. So first question is, the the look-alike tile, does that affect insurance?
So I am actually not 100% sure. We do not come across it very often, but I would be happy to look into it.
Good point.
Question is, why would you order a four point if you're gonna have to have a full inspection?
Or I do a full inspection and not every inspection needs a 4-point. You have a newer home, you have up to, what's your age?
20 years.
I get it. It's an add-on for an inspection because not every inspection needs it. Okay, so if every inspection needed it, it'd just be part of it. But it's an add-on because it does take me more time to fill that form. I spend probably 15 minutes after I get home. Once I review the full inspection, it takes me about 15 minutes to actually do the 4-point. So it's not a one and done and easy to do. It does take, because I got to pull a lot of pictures in and I've got to do a lot of assessments, make sure that I take from my full inspection and then identify everything I need for the 4-point, make sure that's accurate for Danelle. So I still get a lot of requests on newer homes, only just because they're getting that inspection, might as well just get it all. And if it is requested, then they have it. And the 4-point is probably the least window of time that you have to use it, where a wind mitigation, you have like 5 years. Yeah.
Got time for one more quick question if anyone has one, or we can go have some wine and cheese and you can talk to the panelists on your own as well.